My name is Dan Jacobs with Law Ruler, so I wanted to thank everybody for joining us for our webinar series. Today's focus is going to be on negotiating and settling contingency matters. We're going to go through the background of this. We spoke with many different firms over the past 5 years and asked them how they were doing their settlements, and prevalently the theme was that it was being done through manual spreadsheets. They were manually cutting the checks out of their ledger, and it was a cumbersome process that needed to be improved. So we have taken the past several years, and we feel that we have produced something that makes this much simpler, error-free, and much more effective, as well as a time saver for you and your staff. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into this. So as well, we are doing a Zoom webinar. So if you do have any questions while we proceed, there is a Q&A button inside the Zoom toolbar. And if you press that and you ask a question, our moderator, Hillel Charm, will be replying to any questions, and we will announce any questions at the end and answer them as well for you. So please, by all means, use the Q&A tab to ask any questions during the webinar. So again, everybody who just joined in the past few moments, thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. Okay, so I think first and foremost, we're going to very quickly just touch on what firms were doing before they used Law Ruler's contingency settlement calculator. This little comical meme here, it seems to be, what was done before Law Ruler, using spreadsheets. We have a new approach, uses the power of the Microsoft Azure cloud, as well as automation that's built in a Law Ruler, and we feel that this winning recipe is going to be very effective for our clients in their settlements. So just real high level, I think first and foremost, the goal whenever a firm does a settlement is to do so in a controlled way to prevent errors, so that you do not disperse money that you should not, do not overpay people, and have any of those types of issues. So we have created something that is very streamlined. It will reduce errors. It will save you or staff time in this. And it is a very consistent approach with financial controls built in if you'd like to use them, but they are optional. And we feel that this entire settlement process needed a 21st century refresh of it, because the way that firms were doing it was really, Stone Age. So we have something very refreshing, and we think you'll enjoy it, where we even can use ESign to do closing statements, as well as one click that will print out all of your settlement transactions in one motion, which is very critical. Some of these settlements have 20, 30 vendors and, multiple claimants, and, doing so was very labor intensive with a manual approach, which is not what we are recommending. As well as we have a Quickbooks Online integration to minimize data entry. And of course, this service is free with the Law Ruler subscription. There's no additional charge to use our contingency billing settlement calculator. Okay, so before we dive into the system, I just want to review a high-level workflow with everybody so they know what topics we're going to cover. So first and foremost, this settlement calculator, although Law Ruler does have billing features for, other types of billing such as invoicing and credit card online payments, that's not what we're covering today. We're reviewing contingency settlements and how those can be billed in Law Ruler as far as contingency is concerned. So first off, case management. Now this is where during the life of the case, you're going to manage your costs, you're going to add and update vendor balances, you're going to input any meds and liens. And the second step is the review of the case. This is really as it pertains to a settlement. So inside each settlement, once you create it, you're going to get the opportunity in a worksheet. Now it has similarities and parallels to what may have been done in the past with the manual approach, but it is much more intuitive and user-friendly. You don't have to worry about formulas being deleted or misformed. And you have a lot of things that are going to protect you and as well as your firm and your clients from things like that. And the ESign process is built in with our approvals. Finally, the disbursement process. That's our one click. Once everything looks good, once the managing attorney or financial controller or whoever is delegated to approve settlements approves each one, then you can send it to, the transactions area in Law Ruler and or QuickBooks in one click. So high level, that's exactly what we're going to cover. So at this point, we're going to jump over into the system. I have a test system pulled up right here, and I'm going to jump into test McTester's case. And based on what I'm looking at right here in the milestone bar, the green means completed, yellow means pending. It looks like all steps have been completed in this case prior to settlement. And that is the last remaining item here. I'm going to look at my notes, and it looks like trial was postponed. Settlement offer was made by opposing counsel. We had a telephone call with the client, and they approved the settlement offer that was placed forward. So at this point, we have received that settlement check, and we're going to deposit it shortly. Here we have the expenses and case costs that have accumulated through the life of the case. We have court fees right here. That one has a $0 vendor balance since they use e-file. It was paid with a credit card. And it's very important that these things are tracked in the system during the case or right before settlement. And this is where you're really going to protect yourself from overpaying anybody by accident. So other than the hard cost for the Broward County Clerk of Court for court fees, everything else is still open and will be paid, as well as any costs that the firm pays during the settlement. Law Ruler has you covered. It will automatically recover them for you and cut a transaction for you to be repaid at the end of the settlement for anything that you have paid for during the life of the case. Very critical. As well as any costs due to vendors, you will also have those created at the end, and this is all one click. So we're just kind of reviewing everything as it stands right now in the case before we create a settlement. So at this point, everything looks good to me. It's usually a good idea to have your staff check for liens right before dispersing as best practice. Make sure that the client does not have any other liens they didn't tell you about, and make sure that all the vendor balances are current. We're going to assume that everything is at this point. We have a settlement check in hand. So we're just going to go to the shortcuts bar, do a deposit here into trust. It was paid by the defendant. It was a check. And then the amount of the check was $30,000. Okay, so now we have a trust balance of $30,000. We have already looked at our expenses. Everything is good to go. So at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a settlement. So I go down here to the shortcuts bar, new settlement. I'm going to include the deposit I just made. You can have one or more deposits that will be included. And I just press create and view, and this will bring me right into the settlement calculator. Now this worksheet is designed to be as flexible as Excel without any of the errors, such as deleting a formula by accident or manually editing a number that there's no audit trail to. Those things happen, everybody knows they do, and we want to protect you against those sort of things from happening. So first in the settlement worksheet, and this will print a closing statement at the end, of course, as well as the transactions. So you have settlement recovery. This is the amount that we did recover, $30,000. Any attorney's fees, if there's one or more firms involved in the case. Right here, I'm just going to click back to the case just to show you. There were two firms involved, our firm, and then test firm had 33 1/3 of the case. We had the rest of it. So the fee will be automatically divided if there's more than one attorney on the case. So you see how it did the math here for us automatically. If for some reason later in the settlement that we decide that we want to lower our attorney's fee, and it does happen sometimes if the client's not going to get a favorable settlement, you can edit any attorney fee at any time, and it will calculate it for you real time if you need to lower your fee percentage or split or anybody else. So that is available just like Excel. Firm expenses to be paid recovered. This area is where these are the items that your firm is going to get paid back for in the settlement. These are your recoverable costs. So you see that we already paid the Broward County Clerk of Court $400, and that because of that, we're going to recover that $400, as well as we had $95 in soft costs for postage, photocopies, and such. So we're going to recover a total of $495. Again, if we need to edit these at any time, just as Excel, let's say, for example, that we're not going to charge the client for the soft cost on this one for some reason, and because maybe their settlement's not large enough, they're getting $8,005. Let's say, for example, we want to take that off and see what it looks like. So yeah, I'd like to remove it. So now you'll see that the cost has changed to $8,100 automatically in real time. But then I just said, you know what? I think we do need to take that, you know, so I'm going to show not billed, and I hit the plus here, and I can add it right back like nothing ever happened, and you'll see that the settlement amount for the client goes back to $8,005. So that's how you do your recoverable costs. And then costs due to third-party vendors that are right here. You have a medical bill for a hospital stay of 3 days. That's a $10,000 balance. There is a lien on it, so it's not going to allow you to disperse this without satisfying the lien first, as well as a pre-settlement funding loan for $1,500. So you have your total deductions of $21,995, and then the client's payment is set right here. It shows you all the math. The total recovery for the settlement, the total attorney's fees deducted, the total expenses, interest, tax. If you do charge interest tax, Laurel will calculate them automatically for you. Total deductions, excluded expenses. If you were to take any out, as I showed above, I had removed the soft cost and put it back. It would show you any of those here. So you have full visibility if you do exclude anything in your settlement before you pull the trigger on it. And then the client's getting $8,005. Now, terms and conditions. This prints at the bottom of the closing statement. This is totally customizable, as is the entire closing statement itself. It's a Microsoft Word document, completely customizable for your firm. And down here are your settings for each settlement if you want to charge tax or charge interest or use, you know, various accounts and, you know, what you want to print on there. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm in a draft mode right now, and that's what's really important. I'm still in a draft. This has done nothing. It created no financial transactions. It has no effect in anything. I'm in a playground right now. So if I want to prove this, again, I'm just saying, yes, this is a real settlement. And yes, I want to create a closing statement to review. I'm not actually doing anything with any consequences. So it has all that safety. You see how now this is the settlement status right here in the top right-hand corner. It's now pending signature. So it was yellow before, now it's green, meaning live settlement draft, you know. So if I ever want to roll back to draft mode at any point, I can do so. Now what this does is only administrative users or ones that have access are going to be able to roll things back and make changes after it's approved. So you have those financial controls in place. Unlike an Excel spreadsheet, anybody can edit it at any time and you won't know what they changed unless you go into the audit logs, which can be a little confusing. So at this point, you know, we have everything ready to go. We have our recovery, attorney's fees deducted, firm expenses to be recovered, client expenses to be paid out to those vendors. And now I can actually click here and view the settlement closing statement. Now there's only one client in this settlement. It can handle more than one client if you'd like it to. So I click on the client's name to view their closing statement. And again, this is using a template that is completely customizable for your firm and your needs. It was designed to be so. So right here, I see that, you know, here are the details. This is what our closing statement that we created as a template for all of our clients looks like. So settlement amount, attorney's fees, and then itemizes every settlement expense that was deducted from the settlement, and then total fees, expenses, balance due to the client, and then if you'd like to print a ledger of any transactions or not, you can, and then terms and conditions. This is just so you have a signed release. Again, you can put all your own language and formats here. These are all mail merge codes, so they can be dropped into any document that is, and then this is what the client is going to be asked to sign. So if you'd like to e-sign it, then you can press the button right here to send the e-sign via text or email in the bottom right-hand corner. So I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna send it via email. So it'll send it to the one or more clients on the settlement. So it is now sent out to them. I'm gonna jump in the case and I'm gonna open that myself since, you know, for the purposes of this. So here is my closing statement from Law Ruler. And this is the type of email they're going to receive. Again, this content is totally customizable in the settings area. Let's sign and review. And right here we have the closing statement, and then we have a signature block at the bottom. So I'm going to sign that. And again, e-sign is a nice convenience. It really brings the settlement process into the 21st century. Unless you want to meet with your clients face-to-face in your conference room, some you do, not all. Totally a decision on a firm-by-firm basis. If you decide that you do not want to use the e-sign, you can skip it by just pressing process settlement at any time. As long as you have the access rights to do it, you will. So now that we see that this is marked as signed, because you see the green check box here, so I'm going to go ahead and hit process settlement. Now this is going to say, you know, it's going to allow me to proceed. And I have a signed settlement status right here. and then process settlement. Now this part is where some of the magic happens. When I said one click, everything goes into your transaction ledger as well as QuickBooks, this is where that will happen. So you're going to see here, these are all the transactions that I'm going to create in the settlement. So instead of having to worry about people making mistakes, everything's done right here for you. All the amounts that you have to pay to every vendor, including the recovery check to yourself. See right here, we have $95 and $400 due back to Law Ruler Software. That's to us, just as an example. We are the firm in this demo. As well as the $1,500 to the pre-settlement funding company, the hospital bill, the attorney's fees to our partner firm in this case, our attorney's fees, the client's payment. Client's payment will always default to come out of trust. Everything else other than the client's settlement amount will automatically come out of the operating account unless you turn that off. If you want everything coming out of trust or you want everything coming out of operating, those are just settings in the settlement that you can make on a case-by-case basis if you need that flexibility. But you'll see that in order to do this out of the operating account, we have to do a transfer to that account in order to cover the balance. We automatically have a transfer transaction right here for the total amount of all of everything that has to come out of the operating account, since if you remember, we deposited the client's $30,000 check into the trust account as we should have. So I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to look at the transactions before I proceed with the settlement. And you'll see here I have a $30,000 deposit into trust. And then I had a $400 payment that I had made to that vendor, the Broward County Clerk of Court. We spoke about that earlier. And so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, yes, I'd like to process these transactions. This is one click, everything. So now you'll see the settlement status is updated to processed. So we have a record of everything. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to refresh the screen right here in the transactions tab. And you'll see that in one motion, it has created all of these additional transactions. First, we have the transfer from trust to operating, double entry accounting. And then we have all of these payments. These all push up to QuickBooks so you can print those checks immediately. So that's, that's kind of the beginning to the end of the process in a nutshell. So at this point, whatever questions there might be, love to open up the floor for questions. Hillel, I'm not sure if you'd like to kind of take point on that.
Yeah, any questions anybody has, we're available. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so if anybody does have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, we'll give another moment or two for questions. Other than that, we feel this is fairly straightforward. I do see a question, Hillel.
Yeah, that just came in. What about adjusting for priority liens?
So as far as liens are concerned, that's something that you're going to set when you do each expense. I glossed over that part just to not make this too lengthy. So while you are creating any expenses in the system, you can choose the type of lien that it is. So this is all customizable. So whatever that might be, you can, and then if there are certain additional things such as priority, those can be put in, various places to, categorize it or prioritize it as needed. A lot of people use notes for that. Something that's a good suggestion. So it's certainly something we could add as a field in the settlement area. But for now, I would suggest using the notes area or selecting the proper one from the drop down here when you're inputting the expenses.
Thanks, Dan. We got another question came in. It seems like we need to create a mock settlement deposit check in order to work on the settlement sheet. Because with our firm, the clients need to approve the distribution sheet before we actually communicate that to the insurance company and receive the actual check and release.
Absolutely, and that is actually what we would recommend. So even if you don't have the check in hand, you can always go ahead. This process it does nothing until the end when you actually press process transactions, and that's why we designed it that way. So if you don't have the check in hand, but you want to review it during negotiations and you want to take all of the expenses that you've accumulated during the case and liens and such, and you want to evaluate it, we designed this with intent to not do anything until the very end. It can be voided at any time. It can be edited at any time. until the very end in that last step when you press the process button, which is after the transaction screen. So you can look at all those transactions, evaluate them, share them with whoever they need to be shared with, and it gives you all of that flexibility before actually going through with any of it.
So any other questions from the floor?
And just to show you how you would do that, if I wanted to revert this deposit, had I not already done a settlement with it, I would go here and I would just, if I was doing it just for mock purposes, it's a void. It's not a deletion. A void will create an equal and opposite transaction, just avoid it out of the ledger for you. It's dummy proof, it's tamper proof. You would just do that and just void it as if it never happened.
All right, we got a couple of more questions. Can you change the mathematical formula? Sometimes the liens can cut into the attorney fee. How do you account for that?
I'm not that familiar with that part of it. I'd love to hear more about it if we could speak with them offline afterward.
Okay, we have another question. How can you start a draft settlement if you haven't made a deposit?
So if you'd like to do a draft settlement anytime, you're just going to want to add a phantom deposit. It's something that's completely reversible. So at any point in time, you would just go into the shortcuts bar and you would just add a deposit, for, however much you think that you're going to get in the settlement, whatever is being offered at that point in time. And, just pick the basics here with in mind that we're going to completely reverse this. I could just write this as a, test deposit and such,
Awesome.
We got do that, and then I can revert it at any time by going in the transactions area and hitting the garbage can icon, and it will create an equal and opposite transaction. That way you have an audit trail of it just in case. So it's double entry accounting. So it's not going to let you do anything without a trail, but it will allow you to see the entire settlement, and no transactions will print at the end unless you go through with the final step.
All right, we got another question from a latecomer. Just reiterate, what is the cost of the program?
The cost of the settlement calculator is included with the Law Ruler subscription. There's no added cost for it. So as far as the pricing for the product, we can provide that, afterward, but you're dealing with a per user monthly cost.
All right, that seems to be all the questions we have so far. We have a couple more minutes for Q&A. Any other questions from the floor? I don't see any more questions yet. We'll leave the floor open for just another minute, and after that, we'll wrap it up.
Just as a reminder, while we're waiting for questions, our next webinar will be in July towards the end of the month around a similar time, and that's where we're going to cover our smart dialer, which will help your firm sign up more cases, and it will allow you to be very, very successful in a way that you may not have experienced previously. So we'll be covering that in our next webinar. So let's go back to questions. Any other questions for the moment? And our team is, of course, available. You're always welcome to email support@lawruler.com if you have questions, or go to our website and click on the support tab, which will open up our support forum. We have documentation on our settlement calculator and how it works, the nuts and bolts of it, every detail that is available. We can provide that to you, or you just go to lawruler.com, click on support, and then search for the word settlement, and the thread will come right up for you. As well as we're happy to give you live training on this as well.
We just have one more question. Someone says that they don't currently have those tabs in their program, so would they be able to get them added? To the person who asked that question, if you're using the Law Ruler Cases module, all we need to do is turn on the settlement calculator, and you'll be able to see those tabs inside of your software. Yeah,
you just would have to set the case billing type to contingency, because it will only show you the settlement tab if the case billing type is set to contingency. So, and that is also something that if you are a contingency firm, we recommend setting that as a default. So if you're an administrative user, you click on setup, and then you go to billing settings. And then in billing settings right here is you can set the default billing type for new cases that are created that way you don't have to touch it. So if you are primarily a contingency firm, we'd recommend doing that. And just as a little FYI, right here is where you can see all the invoice and settlement emails and closing statement templates. If you ever wanted to modify any of these, they're all right here in this screen.
Perfect. I think those are all the questions that we have. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@lawruler.com, and we'll be happy to answer those as well.
Great. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We're here to help. Anything that we can do, please always let us know. We're always looking to improve and provide you the best practice management and intake application on the market. So by all means, reach out for anything else. Appreciate all your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.